ND filters for an action camera, that can actually be quite useful. But there are also downsides. I've had a number of negative experiences with ND filters in the past. Strong color shifts, terrible lens flares, and issues with stabilization. But since I know many of you have been waiting a long time for ND filters for the X5, I took a close look at the new filters, shot a ton of footage, and tested them thoroughly. Here's what I found. First of all, these new filters are a real innovation. Until now, there was simply no ND filters for current 360 cameras such as the X3, X4 or X5. And that's not surprising. Lens stitching has to be perfect, colors and exposure need to be correctly adjusted. Not exactly an easy task with a 360 camera. The new ND filters from Insta360 come as sets with 2 filters each for the 2 lenses in the strengths ND64, ND32 and ND16. Each filter set comes in a small box and looks absolutely premium. Here you can see the ND64 filters. And they look seriously cool. With these filters, the X5 kind of looks like a little astronaut. But why would you even need filters like these? The more light there is, the shorter the exposure time has to be in order to avoid overexposing your scene. Very short shutter speeds lead to extremely sharp images, even when there is a lot of movement. That might look crisp, but not natural and definitely not cinematic. Take for example fast motorcycle or bike rides. It's the motion blur that conveys a real sense of speed. To achieve that, you need to darken the scene so you can increase the exposure time and get that desired motion blur. And ND filters are basically sunglasses for your lenses. They darken the image. ND64, for instance, reduces the exposure by 6 stops. Let me quickly show you how to properly use the new ND filters on the X5. You mount the filters by twisting them onto the lens, like you would with lens guards. To do that, place the filter on the lens with the 2 orange dots pointing to the bottom right, then twist it clockwise until it clicks into place. Super easy. If you install the filters while the camera is powered on, they're automatically detected. If not, you can manually activate them under Accessories, ND Filter Model, and select the correct strength. As I mentioned, the goal is to reduce the shutter speed to get more motion blur. You can of course use the auto exposure settings when using the filters, but for proper control over motion blur, you should manually set the shutter speed. Since I shoot at 30 frames per second, the ideal shutter speed is 1/60th of a second. And to set that, swipe from the right edge of the screen to the left and switch to manual exposure. Here I set the shutter to 1/60th. Then you can adjust the ISO to get the correct exposure. For optimal image quality, the ISO value should be at 100. If you need to raise the ISO too high, say over 400, you should probably use a weaker ND filter instead. And as you can see, the result looks really cool. You get a fantastic motion blur effect that suddenly gives a whole new sense of speed. My first impression of the new filters, I have to admit, is definitely positive. Here you can also see a direct comparison with the same shot without a filter. Yes, of course, the unfiltered footage looks sharper. That's partly due to the lack of motion blur, and I'll get back to that in a second. But the shot with the filters looks more natural and conveys the speed much better. What you can also see here is that the stabilization isn't quite as perfect. Especially on the horizon and the mountains, you can notice small jitters. The reason is simple. The footage is stabilized electronically in the app, and that works best with very sharp images. But if you consider that I'm riding my bike in these shots and the camera is mounted on a long stick in front of me and it's quite bumpy at times, the result looks quite good. To improve the stabilization, you can increase the shutter speed a bit. In these examples, for instance, I set it to 1/120. That helps avoid those small jitters while still giving you some motion blur. Though of course it doesn't look quite as cinematic as at 1/60th. What really surprised me in a good way is that the filters barely cause any color shifts, even when using the strongest ND64 filters. I recorded some comparison shots and couldn't detect any relevant differences. That tells you these are really high quality filters. My biggest concern was that the filters might create ugly lens flares. But I can definitely give the all clear here. I took a lot of footage, and yes, in some shots, like this one, you can see some lens flares. But they're not distracting at all and actually look very natural. One thing to note though, the filters do make the footage a bit softer, which, as mentioned, also comes down to the shutter speed. That's something you just have to like. If you're after that ultra sharp look, then ND filters probably aren't for you. But if you're aiming for a cinematic style, ND filters are an absolute must. All in all, I'm really impressed by these new filters. Flares and color cast, I didn't notice anything negative in my tests, and I'm positively surprised. If you're interested in ND filters for your X5, I think you can absolutely go for it. The filters are sold separately and each filter set costs $59. Yes, that's not cheap, but I don't think it's easy to produce these filters. You'll find a link in the video description. For me, this new filter set is one of the most interesting accessories for the X5. If you're curious about my top 10 accessories for the X5, be sure not to miss my video on the best X5 accessories. In that video, I created a full ranking of my favorite accessories. Leave a like if this video was helpful to you. There will be more videos about the Insta360 X5 coming soon. So stay tuned and see you next time.